So here's a quick introduction to the abdomen. This lecture or little video is not going to be in depth and should really serve as just a introductory easing into what we know as the abdomen. Um, okay, so we can break down the abdomen into a couple of different ways. So we can have you might see a hexagonal sort of diagram being used to represent the contents of it. Typically, we use these two ones are the ones I want you guys to know because we're going to refer to these regions a lot. For example, right upper quadrant pain, we want to, once someone comes in with that, we want to be able to identify what the possible causes could be by looking at what's in that region, what pain refers there. Uh, so yeah, here's one way we can organize the information about the abdomen. And another way that we can think about when studying anatomy of the abdomen is thinking about the layers superficial to deep. That's a really good way to get an understanding of where the layers sort of start and where they end. And a lot of the problems that come around are due to like for example, hernias happen due to laxities in the surfaces. So thinking superficial to deep is always a good idea in this region. Here's a quick run through. So skin, we've got subcutaneous tissue. We have two layers. One is called campus fascia, one's called carpus fascia. Uh, we've got we've got muscles, and in between those muscles we have investing fascia or deep fascia. External oblique, internal oblique, transversus abdominis. There's also another thing here which is similar to your muscles of like on the rib cage, which is kind of like the hands in pockets, hands on chest, sort of fiber orientation, which you should also know. At the base of it all, we've got the transversalis fascia, then we've got extraperitoneal fat, and then we've got your parietal peritoneum. These words might seem like a lot and might not make a lot of sense. Like, for example, I don't know if you guys know what peritoneum is, but don't worry too much about it. It will become clear as you progress through your lectures. Okay, so problems. We've got hernias, right? This is basically when there's a weakness or laxity in the abdominal wall, and then uh, your intestines sort of go into it, and then they get trapped. And then if they lose their blood supply, they get strangled, and then they die. And that's pretty bad. We want to avoid that. And I've got a bunch of lumpy bumps all over the body. And the next key part of the abdomen, which is which you're going to be introduced to more at the beginning of learning abdo anatomy, is going to be the inguinal canal. Okay, so um, I told you there's a bunch of layers like this, that look like this. There's there's going to be, so if you orient yourself, this is going to be your hip. So this is closer down to your sacral region. In this region, we've got what we call the inguinal canal, which sort of runs through all these layers, which is again why it's a very good idea to get a really good understanding of like all of these layers. This inguinal canal starts with a deep inguinal ring here, and then makes its way through the layers, and then forms the superficial inguinal ring, which is the opening at the anterior surface, as it extends downwards. Now, why do we have this, and how does it form? It's because of your balls dropping, or your undifferentiated gonads essentially moving from its embryonic location and moving towards where it ends up being in the adult body. Now, uh, I didn't know your balls actually drop, so this is pretty interesting. Uh, but basically, dissension of the testicle is a pretty complicated process, uh, and there's a lot of stuff that can go around there, which we want to know about. We can get undescended testicles like this, which leads to increased risk of things like cancer later on. Um, the process, like I mentioned, undifferentiated gonad because it's the same process in if you have an ovary. So basically it just descends downwards, pulled down by what we call the gubernaculum, and enters, and then like it becomes this formation here. Um, this inguinal canal is formed due to this sort of, if you imagine you have like a cloth and then you're dropping a ball on top onto the piece of cloth. As the ball falls through the layers of the cloth, it's just going to grab all of the layers of the cloth with it as it falls. And that's basically what happens. So it starts up here and then it falls down. And then as it falls down, it grabs all of its layers with it and then um, pulls downwards. So something else that we need to know is going to be the layers that make up the spermatic cord, or like that make up this cord here. Because these layers give us a hint as to what are the layers that make up the scrotum, and that's going to be pretty important. So yeah, thinking superficial to deep, again, very good idea when we do this stuff. All right, hernias not only happen on the abdominal surface, but also through this thing we call the inguinal canal. So you can get indirect and direct hernias, direct inguinal hernias. Indirect inguinal hernias go through the superficial, I mean, the deep inguinal ring and then into the inguinal canal. The direct inguinal hernias don't go through the deep inguinal ring, but rather just project through the abdominal wall into the inguinal canal. You can get um, intestines that just like go into the scrotum. It's pretty weird, but yeah, you can get that as well. Uh, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. For example, you can get varicocele, which is this pampiniform plexus here being weird and swollen. We can get testicular torsion, where you get twisting of the spermatic cord, which is pretty painful apparently. It couldn't be me. But undescended testicles, we can get lymphatic drainage. Oh, well, we do have lymphatic drainage, but we can get cancer metastasis through this lymphatic drainage, and we want to know direct, like roughly what path it travels in, because that's going to be pretty useful for us. Yeah, just a quick intro. Hope you guys have a good day.